News, views, voices of the global Indian community. India abroad.
It's obviously a coverage of an article. The government of India has responded. When the State Department spokesperson was asked about the question, it was, let's wait and watch. It's an ongoing investigation, and from that perspective, we'll just have to wait and see how it unfolds. India's democracy is an example to the world, one of the largest elections. But first and foremost, one of the conversations that I have with anybody in the United States is the rise of India 2.0. There's a tremendous amount of excitement. There's this belief that India is on the rise. The economy is growing at a rate that's unprecedented. There's a great attention from corporate America that looks to see how do they become a part of the India growth story. Along with that, the population of 1.6 people is phenomenal. But one must always understand that the democracy of India is vibrant, one that has stood the test of time. I have a lot of faith in the people of India. To the point about India's growth, the trajectory, there are many people who believe that the top richest have become rich and many have been left behind. The story is no different than that of the United States. Income inequality is real. But I think India is going through a reset. And that reset is what this election is all about. I think the voters are going to decide, do they want a strong India, or do they want an India on the rise in which the correction for the course happens and no one is left behind? I think that is the experiment of democracy in India that people will vote on. My goal is that a strong India in the region is good for me as an American. I think America's interests are protected and strengthened with a strong India. India has built a formidable role in the world, not only through its economy, but through the potential of being the third largest economy in the world. But along the way, India has become a responsible player in the region as a countercheck to China's growing influence. On one hand, you have a choice of the debt trap. On one hand, you have a choice of India becoming a true partner. Whether it's the New South, whether it's a voice for Africa, India continues to play a pivotal role. The United States and India will have a formidable relationship. Many have called it the most consequential partnership of the 21st century. Imperfections of democracy is what India is all about. It's a great experiment. I believe this election will demonstrate to people far beyond a reasonable approach that India is on the rise, and the 1.6 billion people of India will define the course of India. Electorate always delivers. Good or bad, democracy is strengthened when people vote. One could argue that the turnout is low. One could argue that the command for a political message transcends beyond what would consider normal campaigning. I think the people of India are yearning for a leader who continues to rise India to the top, and then we can live to fight another day for income inequality, which I think will be an issue over the next 10 years. And as India rises, the middle class and those that aspire for work will continue to find that India's economy creates opportunities. But there'll be challenges, and that challenge is what makes democracy so vibrant. That's an interesting question. Somebody says that if you own cyberspace, you own the space, and you own the waters, and you own the air, you become formidable. So the Indo-Pacific Ocean, India is becoming a formidable player. Cybersecurity, I think India's talent is continuing to be somebody that leads on the evolution of technology. AI, I think India will lead. India is leading on space. There are success stories of India's investment in the space. I think from that regard, India has arrived as a formidable player. Silicon Valley looks at India as an existential partner, but somewhere along the line, we can aspire for the fact that India will always be friendly to the interests of entrepreneurs and those that put in venture capital. I think India has gotten better. It still can do a little bit more. Till that's out, I think the world will continue to invest more in America, and India will be strong second to put a check on China. I think it's a relationship that's tested only because the United States relationship is a relationship in which we've often said that our foreign policy is grounded in human rights. We're not perfect as Americans either. We aspire for a strong human rights record all over the world. From that regard, I think America's expectations from India is that it becomes an indispensable partner, that it continues to become the pluralistic nation that it has. I believe it will. only because I remember fondly of the India that I left. We often never knew the difference between what it is, but there was an aspirational hope for India's rise. If I were in India today, when I left 1986, the India that we're seeing today is the one that I would aspire for on economic policy. I would just hope that everybody would feel that India is a country in which everybody could feel that they have the chance to succeed. I think as Indian Americans, we recognize that how we're perceived in this country is direct correlation to how India is perceived in the world. We've made a move from a model minority to a community that has to contributing so much to the United States, right? And somewhere along, I think it's really demonstrated that India is important for that growth. And I think that looking at the attention that the government of India has been paying to its diasporas across the world, begins to recognize that they want us to become indispensable partners in the rise of India in the near future. I think that we look at this with great admiration, because today India is a country that people see as a country that aspires to be an equal. Third largest economy in the next 10 years is nothing to sneeze at. I think our best days as Indian Americans in this country is yet to happen, but it's going to get strengthened. How we plan to see this, India rises, strong democracy with a global role where India continues to emerge as a player at the table, often seen by this table of nations, to see that India can play a formidable role, forging consensus and compromise, is remarkable because that goes to the very nature of who we are as Indian Americans. But on the other hand, Lalit, I often get asked questions. Yogi, what is your concept about New India? And I often come back and say, India is an experiment of democracy. It has continued to become what it is. And as America is one Judeo-Christian nation in which all relations are allowed to flourish, I see India the same way. A country that is predominantly Hindu, but in which every single minority is allowed to flourish. The economy, addressing the question of income inequality, that is what makes the experiment of democracy in India, and frankly, the experiment of democracy in the United States, where we are under siege, make this such an indispensable relationship. I do. I think that becoming, for candidates to run for office, I think being a Hindu American is being normalized. Tulsi Gabbard ran as a Hindu. Bobby Jindal ran, but he was not Hindu. We've then had Vivek Ramaswamy. We had Nikki Haley Randhawa. I think this very idea of meritocracy in a government, I think where these candidates have failed, at least in my mind, is to connect with the voters in a primary to come back and tell them that they believe in the aspiration of what this community and this nation feels. One thing that I think Trump has done well, and I think Bernie Sanders did well, they spoke to the forgotten class. If you can speak to that forgotten class, talk about America's greatness, about bringing manufacturing back into the United States, faith may not be that of an important issue. I yearn for that day when an Indian American member of Congress, senator or a department cabinet secretary could aspire to be a president of the greatest nation in the world. And Lalit, it is my hope that the legacy of our Indian American journey, of our immigrant story, will be solemnized because America sees us as equal participants of what is going to continue to make America great beyond the 21st century. Politics matters. America looks for the best and brightest. I think there are a few out there. Maybe in 6 months, if you ask me, I can give you a better sense of where we are headed. I'm more optimistic that America is ready to embrace a Hindu American president under the right set of circumstances.